Besigye and MUSEVENI are bedfellows with MUSEVENI in 1981 when they went to the bush to overthrow a legitimately elected government. So MUSEVENI is as treasonous as Besigye. Maybe they should find something to share the same cell. If they all committed treason. Because what makes it treason now, what wasn't treason when MUSEVENI was doing it in 1981? Trying to overthrow, not trying, okay, succeeding in overthrowing a legitimate elected government. So these are some of the things we have to ask ourselves. Besigye's arrest was a bit enigmatic as far as I was concerned at the beginning, because I wondered why they would go and arrest him from Kenya, yet he was coming from here, and all indications were that he was going to come back here. So if they wanted to arrest him, they could have arrested him from here. But then there have been some, leaked audios which are going around social media, and most of them are leaked by security people, by the way, alleging that he was involved in some kind of treasonous activity, trying to get arms to overthrow the government. Now, I can't say if those audios were real or not real. Some people are saying they are AI generated, others say that they are real. The question is, I want them to be presented in court where Besigye's lawyers can tear them apart. In front of all of us, I want it to be presented in court, and then we can go court proceedings and see if actually those audios can stand up to scrutiny in court. And I want the trial to be very fast, not locking somebody up for years and years awaiting a trial. If they have evidence as they claim, and the evidence was so urgent that they had to go and get him from Nairobi, then let them set up a quick trial and present that evidence so that we can know for sure if it is true that Besigye was involved in treasonous activities. Because there are so many people who don't believe it whatsoever. But then also on the other hand, if he was involved in any treasonous activity, it wouldn't be his first time. The first time he did it with MUSEVENI in 1981 when they went to the bush to overthrow a legitimately elected government. So MUSEVENI is as treasonous as Besigye. Maybe they should find something to share the same cell. If they all committed treason. Because what makes it treason now, what wasn't treason when MUSEVENI was doing it in 1981? Trying to overthrow, not trying, okay, succeeding in overthrowing a legitimate elected government. So these are some of the things we have to ask ourselves. And in that time when he went to the bush, he said because the government had removed all proper channels through which power can be changed. So is that any different then from what it is now? He said we are left with no other means by which we could change government rather than going to the bush. So is it any different now? Not so. These are so many other things. So maybe MUSEVENI, actually, Besigye and MUSEVENI are bedfellows in regard to treason, not in regard to other things. In regard to treason. So let's see how this goes. But I want the evidence. I want the evidence to be presented in court, preferably the civilian court. But you see, they took him to military court, where and I've been there, and it's really a jamboree of injustice. That military court, it's terrible. But anyway, we'll wait and see. Thank you very much. The reason I'm not so optimistic about Parliament standing in the way is because they know, the members of Parliament know, that if they are the ones to elect the president, that's going to be good deals all around. So it is impossible for them to vote against themselves, so to speak. And now, of course, it's very cunning of the president to tie his interests along with the parliamentary interests, so that the parliamentarians side kind of voting for themselves but voting for him. So that's why it's very difficult, because they know very well that when it comes to electing a president, they will have all the say and there will be a lot of money flying around when that time comes, and there will be beneficiaries. So I don't think they are going to vote against it. But then there is vote against it. But then there is also the only sufferers in all this, by the way, are Ugandans. The people who expect 5 years elections, and during that time, that's when they get to express themselves one or another. Whether the elections are free or fair and fair or not is a different matter. But at least they get to express themselves. And we had hope that after these bushmen have left us, that we shall actually make meaningful elections which will be free and fair, and then people can exercise their right to elect a leader. That was our hope until Mao, with all the money that is going to be flying around, even now, presents this thing too. It could have been presented earlier. Actually, we kind of delayed it by speaking about it and making it a subject of discussion earlier, because it was supposed to be passed, just introduced without any discussion whatsoever, and the next thing you know, it has been passed. But then, of course, we always know what is coming up in Parliament, so we came and talked about it. So it kind of put them off, but they are determined to push it through as soon as possible. But I don't expect any resistance. There's also a part of the amendments that they are planning is to reduce the number of MPs. Do you expect that MPs are going to vote that their numbers are reduced? It's like saying we're asking MPs to debate whether they are going to reduce their salaries. They are getting too much money. We know they can't accept that, so we know the MPs are not going to determine, because nobody is going to stand and say, I think the number of MPs is too many, because what if your seat is the one that is removed in the process of reducing the numbers? So they are not going to vote. So all these things, it's just, the purpose of it all is just to take democracy away and to make it easy for whoever Museveni anoints as his successor to go through, because then it will be about money and 530 something MPs rather than 45 million Ugandans, or however number, whichever number of them is above 18. So it makes it a lot easier for them. That's why it's being done like that. I hope that answers your question.
Maybe you had proposed to have a referendum to decide whether we want Parliament to elect or not. Since you said you expect nothing from Parliament to the other side, then do you believe Ugandans can decide a referendum without obstacles and all the malpractices that have been in previous elections?
At least if there was a referendum, even if it was rigged, because everything is rigged, but at least if there was a referendum, then there would be a justifiable means by which you go away from what you've been doing before to something totally new and completely different. But and there's no saying the referendum would be free and fair, or the results that would come out would be what Ugandans have decided. But at least you can say we carried out a referendum, because remember, we did a referendum to determine if we are moving from NRM for movement system to multi-parties. You remember that? And that was even a smaller thing to change than what we are trying to change now, and we are trying to avoid the referendum. That time it was a question of, do we stay in movement system or do we have multi-parties? And there was a referendum. Then afterwards, you're making a major change in the electoral process of the country, and you just want it to be done among members of Parliament who are even going to be the beneficiaries, as I said, from the changes that they will make. So it doesn't make any political sense. It only makes financial sense for the people involved.
Any other questions?
Ensonga y'okubanga olunaku dozo olw'enkya naye kyemanyi mu wiiki eno Minister wa Justice the Constitutional Affairs Otiba Norbert Mao agenda kukola ekyamuleeta wansi w'enkwawa za Museveni okuleetawo okutondawo enkola nga Parliament yegenda okulonda omukulembeze w'eggwanga bakijje mu bantu aba bulijjo bannayuganda bonna okulonda omukulembeze waabwe. Kati ekyo baagala kireeta, baali balina kireeta luli mu nkukutu, naye olw'okuba twakijjayo ne kigaa nti bwe tuba mugenda kukyusa enkola ebadde tubadde tugenda nayo ate ng'ebadde ne mu constitution nga tubadde tugitambuliddeko okumala emyaka egisukka mu 2 kumbi tugenda mu 3, then tulina okukola referendum ku nsonga eyo. Naye ne basirika busirisi kati ate bagenda kikomyawo, ate nga ekyembi sina ssuubi ly'amaanyi nti Parliament eneekiziyiza, kubanga nabo bajja kuba bafunamu okubanga be balonda omukulembeze w'eggwanga, kubanga ekyo kitegeeza sente zijja kuba ziyitiŋŋana okunaatuuka okulonda omukulembeze w'eggwanga, sente zijja kuba ziyitiŋŋana, kati bajja kufuna kasente. So sikiwa nti bajja kiziyiza, bajja kuteekawo embeera, bano batambule bafulume, bano beekube eŋŋuumi, bakole kyoli atule mu kifo kyoli beekube eŋŋuumi, naye oluvannyuma lwa byonna ekintu kiyite, kubanga oyo Katemba tumulabye owulidde kati bagenda okukola, oli amalize mu ddwaliro agende ne mu Amerika bamujjanjabe ebintu ebiringa ebyo, naye oluvannyuma lwa byonna kijja kuyita. So ekyo kye tusuubira okubeerawo mu Parliament. Kakati sina ssuubi ly'amaanyi nti Parliament erina obusobozi obuyimirira mu maaso ga Museveni ne bumugamba nti ekyo nedda tujja kikola. First of all, alina member of Parliament bangi, abali mu kibiina kye ajja bayita ekisozi oba wadde atereka enteeze bagendeyo batuule. Sigambye nti bonte ngambye kuba yabatwala ku faamu ekisozi ne banywa ku mata ne banywa kacaayi ne bavaayo ne basalawo emmwanyi baziweeyo mu mbuula y'okusigaza bannayuganda mu bwavu. Kakati n'olw'ensonga esiina nsuubiri amaanyi nti banaakola ekyenjawulo. However, twayogera ne tugamba nti singa tuba tukyusa enkola abantu gye tubadde tutambuliddeko okumala emyaka 10 gigenda mu 3 ey'okulonda omukulembeze w'eggwanga nga buli omu alonda universal without suffrage, twalibadde tuyita mu referendum. Kuba twakola referendum okusalawo okuva mu movement system okugenda mu multi party, naye kati kino ate kyamaanyi okusinga kiri, naye ate kyo tebaagala kiyisa mu referendum, baagala kigende bugenzi. Ate si bannayuganda singa bagenze mu referendum ne balonda ne bagaa kale tukooye okulonda omukulembeze w'eggwanga, parliament kekitukolere, awo twali sirise ne tugaa kale bannayuganda bwe basazeewo ne bagenda kibajja mu ngalo kati kiyite bakitwale mu parliament. Sinabayita basuubuzi, ono yabayisa abasuubuzi. Lwaki obayita basuubuzi? Ebyo gwobimanyi sinaga ati balya ssente, nekyemanyi zijja kuyitinga naawe. Abanaazikwata bajja zikwata, abatazikwate bajja zizira. Kuba n'abazira gyebali si buli omuntu akwata. Naye newe yensonga eyo ey'amaanyi eyennyamiza, naye ate ekisinga okwennyamiza nti President General w'ekibiina ekiyitibwa Democratic Party ate yagenza okugyawo democracy mu ggwanga. Ekyo ng'ate kyennyamiza nnyo kubanga yalibadde yasinga okusindika enkola ya democracy gye tubadde tuluubirira ffenna newankubadde nga tubadde tonnagituukako. Naye ate n'akatono ke tubadde tusigaza nako akajjeewo, ayagala kajjawo, akajjeewo nako kagenze. Naye ng'ate mu President General wa Democratic Party kati oba party eyo tugiyite tutya? So ensonga zeezo ekyo kyenjogedde wali kati ababuuza mu kadi